richest man in Babylon. And tonight we're going to be looking at chapter 9 of this book that teaches us how to make money, how to get out of debt, how to make our money make more money. All right. And today specifically, we are going to be learning the fastest way to get out of debt, no matter how big that debt is. If you follow the practical plans outlined in this awesome book, in no time, you're going to be completely debt-free. Please let me know if my sound is good before I proceed. All right. You are most welcome. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are watching. On the 21st of October, 1934, Professor Alfred Shrewsbury wrote a letter. Professor Alfred Shrewsbury was a professor from Nottingham University in the United Kingdom, and he wrote a letter to Professor Franklin Caldwell. Professor Caldwell had just recently excavated 5 clay tablets from the ruins of Babylon. At a point, Babylon, that it was looted, the people fled, and all that were left were ruins. Please let me know if my sound is good, please. Thank you. And so those 5 clay tablets were excavated and sent to Professor Shrewsbury in Nottingham University to transcribe or translate the inscriptions on this clay tablet. And he was expecting that the clay tablet would contain some romantic stories, love tales, stories like Arabian Nights and all of that coming from the olden days. But what he saw really got him fascinated. He saw the story on those clay tablets, the story of a man named Dabasir, who disclosed the problems that he had paying off his debts. And he discovered that the situations in the world had not changed as of that time, as of 1934, compared to the situations of 5,000 years before then when this man lived in Babylon. And if we also look at it today, it is still the same situations in the world. People are still in debt, people still borrow money, people still struggle financially, people still save, they still invest, they still look for ways to become financially free. So the situations are pretty much the same, right? And these are the things contained on this clay tablet. And on the clay tablet, Dabasir offered a way that this professor, Professor Shrewsbury, said that even though he was a professor, he was supposed to be somebody who was a thinking human being, full of working knowledge. Yet he had never heard of ways like this to pay off his debts, because he himself was a man wallowing in debt. He had never heard of ways to pay off his debts and to even have money left in your purse or in your bank account. So he decided that he and his wife, Mrs. Shrewsbury, were going to try the plans outlined on this clay tablets. So on clay tablets number 1, Dabasir wrote that he had the determination to pay off his debts. Don't forget that we learned in the previous chapter that Dabasir, when he newly got married, he was a youth, he was spending beyond his means. He was buying expensive things, and at first things were going well. He would buy on credit, he would pay back. But after a while, as his appetite grew together with that of his wife, he could no longer pay back his creditors. And so before they knew it, they were wallowing in debt. His wife left him, went back to her father's house, and out of shame, he decided to flee Babylon. He ran away until he became a slave in Syria. You can go and watch that chapter. And he met a kind-hearted woman who told him to go back to Babylon to face his creditors. And this was exactly what he did. So he was determined that he was going to put his hands to work. He will become a man of means, worthy of respect, and that he would start paying back everybody that he was owing. So on clay number 1, he wrote down the plans that were supposed to guide him in achieving these plans, right? And here we learn the important lesson of record keeping. Write it down. What are those plans that you have? Don't just keep them in your head. Write out those plans. He was determined through the help of his friend, the gold lender of Babylon, Meton. Meton taught him these plans, and he himself, because of his determination, he was so resolute in carrying them through. The first plan that he had was that he would start saving 10% of his earnings. He would not touch it. No matter how pressed he was, no matter how tempted he was, he would keep 10%. Nothing must touch it. That was the first plan that he had. That was the first plan that Meton told him. Meton told him that any man that is able to provide for his family is a honorable man. If you're able to provide for your family, right, and your family has money to spend, they have food to eat, shelter over their heads, you are a honorable man. If you have very little money to provide for your family, money that is not enough, your family, your wife, and your children will be indifferent towards you, right? They will not hold you in high esteem. And if you have no money at all, then it shows that you are unkind to your family. As a man, you must not allow your family to suffer. So his first plan was that he would keep 10%. And his second plan was that he would become a honorable man and provide for his family. He would give them a decent living, right? And to this, he proposed together with his wife that they were not going to spend more than 70% of his earnings. So they'll keep 10%. That one is their savings. They won't touch it. They'll be keeping it, for their purse to jingle, right? And they'll now live on 70%. They want to eat, they want to buy clothes. There was no mention of children here, so it is assumed that they didn't have children. But in your case, you may have children. So you want to pay children's school fees, transportation, any kind of expenses. You won't live on more than 70% of your income, right? That was the plan. And thankfully, he had a good wife. They agreed on this. That was on clay number 1. So on clay number 2, he wrote the third plan. And the third plan is that the remaining 20%, 10% goes to his savings, 70% goes to their living expenses. The remaining 20%, he would now share consistently and fairly amongst all the people that he was owing, right? And what he did was that he wrote out all their names and the amount that he was owing each one so that he would know, right? This was on clay number 2. Then on clay number 3, he wrote out the total amount that he was owing everybody. And this came to 119 pieces of silver and 141 pieces of copper. This was the total. And he thought to himself that if only he had thought about these plans, he wouldn't have run away from Babylon. If only he had been told these plans by the gold lender of Babylon, Meton, he wouldn't have allowed his wife to return back to her father's house. But thankfully, he now knows about this. But then he had to go through the degradation of becoming a slave in Syria. Well, that was a big lesson for him. And I'm sure that brought him to his senses. The sufferings in Syria brought him to his senses, right? So anytime you're going through any suffering, just think thoroughly. What lessons can I learn from this? Is God trying to teach me anything from this? So instead of fretting, instead of permutating and calculating and looking for shortcuts out of those problems, sit down, think of what you can learn, right? So on the third tablet, he wrote out the total amount he was owing everybody, and he visited all his creditors one by one. He explained to them that, see, there is no way I'm going to pay you what I am owing, except the income that I am getting from the work that I am doing. And he explained to them that out of the 20% that I have determined to keep to share amongst you. I'm going to be honorable every month. I hope it's monthly. Yeah, I hope so. Every time I earn, I'm going to divide it amongst all of you. Some of them were thankful to him. They accepted his proposal, but some did not. And one of the persons that did not accept was Amar, his best friend. He was bitter, he shouted, and he said he left him. That's take it or leave it. This is my plan. You should even be grateful that I have come and I've made plans to start paying your money. What if I am still far away in a strange land and you don't even see me at all? Some other people were also bitter towards him. They wouldn't agree. One of them told him, okay, I accept your proposal, but please pay me first because I also need help at this time. That was clay number 3. On clay number 4, he now started paying with the support of his very good wife. This is why it is good to marry a kind person, a supportive person, a helpmate indeed, right? Whether a wife or a husband, make sure that you marry a kind person. If you are not yet married, you still have the chance, right? His wife was very, very supportive. She supported their plans. They started saving 10%. They wouldn't live on more than 70%, and the remaining 20% would go to their creditors. They would divide, you take, right? And the first time he did it, he took it to their houses. The people that he did not meet, he left it with their wives. Some of them objected, I don't want. And the person that said, I don't want, he said, okay, give me back the money if you don't want. The person refused, right? Some of them thanked him. They were so happy. His wife stood by him and made sure that they followed the plan through. And at some point, his business did a little bit better and was able to earn more money. But before they earned more money, they made sure that they disciplined themselves. They were eating more vegetables and less of meat, right? Until his business started doing better. At one point, he made a very good sale, and that was when they enjoyed themselves. They ate meat. They were able to buy clothes and sandals, But before then, they had delayed gratification. They were not just spending. They sacrificed. They endured. They went through that self-control, the phase of self-control and self-discipline, right? He said, great is the plan, for it leaded us out of debt and giveth us wealth, which is ours to keep. So they did not go for any gratification until they made sure that this plan was working and that they were determined to stay or stand by it. And he said that at this point in his purse, he had 21 pieces of silver, which was his own, his savings. And he became very confident. He could now raise his shoulders. As a man, he gained his confidence back. He became honorable to his wife again and to his fellow men in Babylon. And he said, my wife keepeth well our home and is becomingly gowned. We are happy to live together, right? They were working as one. And this can bring a lot of happiness if you have a strong support system. Could be your spouse or your siblings or your parents or a very good friend that God has blessed you with. It can really help to make your life easy. Yes, you can be so happy if you know that there are people standing by you. And it said that the plan that they had to repay their debt was of untold value. It was a very valuable one. So now here is tablet number 5, the last one. And he wrote on this tablet number 5 on the last day that he paid off all his debts. The last day, that is the day that he secured his freedom from debt. That was when he wrote this tablet number 1. He needed to keep that record. And on this very day, he and his wife celebrated with a great feast that their determination had been achieved. They wined and they dined. And even his best friend that was bitter towards him, that said, no, you cannot pay me this, you ran away, I want my money. He came to beg for his forgiveness. Those that were also bitter towards him, they also came to him. In fact, one of them that had initially said no, he came and said, I see that you are now a honorable man. You have done a very good thing. If you need more money to borrow, come to me. Come on, but I'm willing to lend you more money. You see, but I'm sure I wouldn't fall for the borrowing trap anymore. Not only is the only one who holdeth me in high regard, so many people in Babylon held him in high regard. You know, they now esteemed him, he regained his honor and his respect. For truly, and he said, I do commend it to all who wish to get ahead. So in case you are wallowing in debt, try this plan. Some have argued that as Christians, where is the place of fight, right? So maybe we can tweak it a little bit to say, once you collect your money, your salary, your wages, 100% you collect it. The first thing you do as a Christian, pay your tithes, 10%, right? This is my own plan now. Just trying to retweak his plan because there was no mention of tithe here. So pay your tithes first. You are left with 90%. Out of that 90%, keep 10% for yourself. You save it. That one is not negotiable. That is the minimum. If you can do more than 10%, gladly do it. That is the minimum. Keep 10%. Then instead of living on 70% like he did, live on 60% so that you will still have 20% to share, to divide amongst your creditors, to be able to pay your debt faster. And in case you are not owing, let's assume that you are not owing anybody, right? That's 20% that you're supposed to divide amongst creditors. Now that you're not owing, probably you add it to your savings so that you don't limit yourself to saving just 10%. If you want to grow your wealth faster, then save more money, invest more, right? You now save it. That way you have 30% that you're saving. Or maybe you don't want to inconvenience yourself because as you're saving and investing, you also want to enjoy life. You don't want to be too stingy to yourself. Maybe you now live on 70% and you save 20%. These are the two options available to you if you are a Christian, right? And you need to pay your tithes. Okay, so now the professor that wrote the letter in the beginning has now written another letter. Remember that in the first letter, I was telling Professor Caldwell that he was going to try the plans. Now he was giving him feedback and he said he indeed tried out this plan together with his own wife as well, because they were wallowing in debt. In fact, they were buried in debt. They were owing their landlord for like 3 years. They've not paid. Is it 3 years? I hope so. The person that they were buying groceries from, they were also owing him for like 3 years, right? If I have not mixed it, they were owing one of them for like 3 years. They've not paid. So he also wrote out the names of all their creditors and how much they were owing them. And they went to them one after the other to say, this is our plan. We plan to pay you what we are owing you. We'll divide 20% of our income with everybody we are owing every month. And so they cut down on the expenses. The expensive tea that they used to buy, they now went for one that is even of higher quality and cheaper. That was when they discovered that there were things that they could buy cheaper. So if you don't find out some things, you will never know them. There are things that you can buy cheaper. And he said that they didn't even miss anything. It wasn't that difficult. They were only able to make adjustments to their spending patterns, to their lifestyles. And it really worked for them. And the people that they were owing were decent enough, they were kind enough to accept their plans. And in no time, not only were they able to pay off their debts, they also had money from the 10% that they've been saving. They had money that they could call their own. And he said, the joy of having money in your bank account, or in your purse, in your wallet, knowing that this money is mine, is my own, it doesn't belong to any creditor. That joy far outweighs the joy of spending money. If you have any money somewhere, it will bring you joy. It will bring you a form of satisfaction, happiness, security that, yes, I have 2 million naira in my account. Let it be sitting down there. Before you sleep at night, you know, you will smile to bed that there is 2 million naira, right? But if you don't have any money, you will just be frustrated. You will be hot-tempered. You will be bitter towards yourself and to everybody. So many people are angry today. It is transferred aggression that is worrying them because they don't have money. They are bitter, right? But if you have money, there's this kind of joy, happiness that wells up within your soul. And this was how they were able to get out of debt. So he said that the plan of Dabasir worked so well. We are determined never again to permit our living expenses to exceed 70% of our income. This professor and his wife, they never spent more than 70% of their income. Never again. And he said, he wrote to Professor Caldwell that if he goes to Babylon again and he finds the ghosts of Dabasir, he should thank him. Thank him very much that the plans that he wrote, tell him that the scribblings upon those clay tablets so long ago has earned for him the lifelong gratitude of a couple of college folks back here in England. And he said Dabasir knew that his plan was going to work. And that was why he went through all that he went through, the pain, to write it down, to inscribe the plans on the clay tablets so that others would benefit from his own bitter experiences. That is why he spent tedious hours carving his message upon the clay. He had the real message for fellow sufferers, fellow debtors, a message so important that after 5,000 years, it has risen out of the ruins of Babylon, just as true and just as vital as the day it was buried. This is the end. I hope you have picked some lessons from this in case you are in debt and you don't know how to get out of it. The starting point is determination. You can do it. You just have to be determined. You have to be disciplined. You have to make some lifestyle changes, change your habits, change your spending patterns. Save at least 10% of your earnings. Don't spend more than 70% of your earnings on living expenses. Draft a budget so that you can adhere to your spending pattern. And the remaining 20%, you divide amongst your creditors. And if you are not owing anybody, it is an opportunity for you to save more than 10%. I hope that you have learned. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, please like this video. In case you have not liked it, drop all your comments with me in the comment section below. And please subscribe to this channel in case you are yet to subscribe. I remain Olaide Agbaje, and on this channel, also known as First Lady, and on this channel, I inspire you to live intentionally. On Monday, we're going to review the next chapter, which is titled The Luckiest Man in Babylon. It is going to be another exciting review. You don't want to miss it. But until then, be intentional. Bye.